Good evening, my friends. My name is Paul. I am the Catholic Nintendo nerd, and this is my best friend Andy. He is engineer4God. And I know it's been a while, but Andy finally beat yet another game on a Nintendo system that I haven't even played, and it's called Chrono Trigger for the DS. So we're going to start off a little bit different than normal, and I'm just going to ask you right off the bat. Score-wise, yay, hay, or nay?
It's definitely yay.
Alright, so what do you like/dislike about the game the most?
Well, I definitely like the story, and I like diverse, the diverse times you can go through. It just the game also takes a pretty long time to play, and there's a lot of replayability. So
Yeah, I heard that the original game on the Super Nintendo had 12 endings, and then they added a 13th one for the DS, including a brand new area, which we won't spoil because we're always all about letting you experience most of the game on your own. So, what would you describe to the audience as the basic gameplay mechanics?
so it's a basic RPG style, the old style RPG where you have you can have three characters in a battle, and there's a bunch of enemies on the screen, and it's semi turn based because it is turn based when you like choose your combos and stuff. But the enemies, if you take too long, the enemies still can attack you while you're fumbling around.
I also heard that you don't transition to a separate battle screen. It still takes place on the field when you go into the battle.
Yeah, and you you get magic later on, as well as just there's normal attacks, and you have magic points and stuff like that. Just typical
Now, because
RPG.
you played the DS version but not the Super Nintendo version, you probably don't know how to compare it or anything, but would you say there are obvious uses of the DS functionality that make the game easier to play? That you could tell were well, obviously they wouldn't have this in the Super Nintendo version.
Well, nothing like that. It really did seem very Super Nintendo-ish, the whole game did.
The music, even?
Yeah, but one definite thing that I can tell was definitely in the DS version was the cutscenes. Because they do have the original, like just how it was in the SNES, where it just shows like everything top down and like events just happen like that. But it also has an animated cutscene. I think it's anime.
Hmm. Does it have voice acting?
I think it does.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Voice acting in a DS game, not bad.
but they don't use it too much though. A lot of times it's like they enter like a battle or something. Like there's one scene where they enter this dungeon, and there's all these lights that like light up around, and there's this scary magician they have to fight. So
Huh. So would you say they utilize the two screens setup really well? Are there any touch screen features that they utilize?
not really. It's not really used too much. I mean, the bottom screen you can just quickly access your menus, like your change partners menu or your equip menu, magic menu where you do stuff like heal outside battles and
So it kind of does the Xenoblade Chronicles in that respect.
yeah, which I haven't played that game, so I can't really compare.
Right. So I heard that the game also received a slightly more modernized translation because apparently, back then NES and Super NES games had really dated, jerky Japanese to English transitions. So what do you think about the writing in the game? What kind of style does it have?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the characters talk and sometimes you'll be told like what you have to do on your quest, but the one gripe I do have is that if you forget what you're supposed to do, then you have a problem because
Hmm. No hint systems, I take it?
there isn't any hint system. So if you forget what you're supposed to do, then you're kind of just fumbling around like aimlessly until you stumble upon it.
Oh dear.
That's kind of what
That's
happened to me.
terrible.
Then sometimes the plots are sort of confusing because of the time travel.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, where am I? Why am I here? What am I doing again? Can you please remind me?
So, can you give the audience just a couple of examples of how radical this time travel theme is compared to most other video games? Like, what are some of the different eras you can visit?
Okay, so there's of course the present day, which is 1000 AD, and you can go to the Middle Ages, 600 AD, and then you can go to the super far future that's like 23,000 something, and like it's like post-apocalyptic. And you can go to the prehistoric times,
Dang.
and you can go to the time of antiquity, which is the time of like magicians, and like I guess if Thor were to be in one of those times, he would be
That
in that time.
man, that sounds like that's so ambitious for a Super Nintendo game.
Yeah, and then you can go to the end of time, which is kind of actually
Ooh. Careful not to go into spoiler territory now.
it's not really spoiler. The end of time is pretty much a safe haven. You can
Oh, okay.
just rest and save and stuff like that.
That's convenient. Usually when people think end of time, they think of all like buildings exploding and fireballs all over the place. And we haven't even touched like the exclusive area for the DS version, but would you say that it's cool enough where it would warrant a purchase if you can't get the Super Nintendo version?
Well, I mean, it's kind of an extra thing. It's really just like an extra dungeon.
So it's not like this super spectacular thing that's like, whoa, I gotta get it on DS now.
No, it's not that big, but it's kind of fun.
So um, what about like, you said there were a lot of characters, so would you find the characters to be really lovable, or are they just forgettable, like, RPG cliches?
No, they're pretty lovable. I loved all those characters. And
Were there any, like, amnesiac protagonist, speechless protagonist, clueless female?
speechless protagonist. That's
Oh, brother.
Chrono does not talk at all, so that pretty much is just like the usual stereotypical.
Does he have amnesia?
No.
Is technology
how
considered
can you
evil?
how can you tell? Well, well, I guess there is some of that in the future. But,
Is there a female that's stupid, clueless, and a bumbling idiot?
well, I guess one of the girl characters is sort of an airhead, but she's also a tomboy.
And they have airships?
Yeah, there is actually an airship in there.
So this game does have a lot of cliches, but I mean, it was developed by Square Enix, and they're like the king of cliches. But would you say this game does anything to separate it from turn-based RPGs besides the whole time travel thing? Like, what are some of the things that make the characters stand out to try to non-spoil it as much as possible?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that in addition to your original trio from the present day, you get one character from each of the times that you travel to.
Oh, wow. So you get, like, different... Like, you've got medieval speech and modern speech all coexisting in harmony?
Exactly.
Oh, that's really cool. What about... I heard that this game had amazing production values for its time. Like, it had, like, the best composers of the day, the best screenwriters of the day, so they said it's one of the best looking and the best sounding Super Nintendo games. What do you say to that?
Definitely. I really liked the music. It was sort of, if you've ever played Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, it was a similar music style to that.
Did you notice any tracks that seemed like they were DS exclusives, or did it all sound like Super Nintendo-ish music?
It all sounded kind of Super Nintendo-ish.
So even the secret area that we're not allowed to talk about, that sounded like it could have been on the Super Nintendo?
Yeah, and it wasn't any new music either.
Oh, it was just rehashes.
It's just all rehashes.
And what about the graphics? How would you describe them to the audience?
They were pretty Super Nintendo-ish, but the cutscenes were anime.
So like Professor Layton and pretty much every other Japanese movie out there?
Yeah, pretty much.
No surprises there then. So what would you say to people that aren't a fan of RPGs? Is there an aspect of newness in there that'll ease them into it?
Not really, but it's just it has a cool storyline and the fact that it has multiple endings, which I only got one ending. I got the best ending.
Huh, nice.
Which actually was probably the worst move I could have done because I think I need to do the bad endings first. Because it's one of those things is if you complete a certain task, it's like you can't go back and undo it. So, yeah. I'm going to have to restart. But there is a restart option called New Plus, and I think someone said there's a Continue Plus, where
yeah.
I believe
I think
I
that was
haven't
in
done it.
addition to the DS version.
I haven't done it, but I think what it does is that it allows you to replay the game with like higher strength starting off, so you can get
So
through it
it's a little
faster.
bit better than, like, say, the original 999's really plotting, repeating the game over and over again progression.
Well, I haven't replayed it, but the thing is that I think 999 would actually be more forgivable because 999 you can skip through everything, whereas this is a full length
Oh,
RPG.
man.
So you have to go back to the beginning and like do it all over.
Speaking of length, we don't really talk about that much in these videos, but how long would you say an average playthrough would be? If, say, a player only wants to get one ending, how long do you think it would take them to get?
Well, I mean, I didn't really play all the time, but I mean, that game was very long. Like it took me quite a while to get through it. I mean, of course, there's a lot of bumbling around. Like if I knew exactly what I was supposed to do, then it probably would go quicker. But it's also you you play through and then eventually you fight a really tough boss you can't get past, so you have to go back and get more experience. And one of the things that you have to be sure to do is don't skip battles. You want to fight as many enemies as possible so you get the experience.
And that's why the battles aren't random.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice.
But,
So, I'm
yeah.
going to ask my question again from the beginning, but from a different perspective. So, for fans of classic Square Enix style RPGs, would you say that it's a yay, hay, or nay?
Well, I'm not sure about like I mean the only other Square Enix RPG I really played um was the Kingdom Hearts.
I think they have the same composer for some of the songs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But Kingdom Hearts is like kind of different because it's three-dimensional
Mm-hmm.
and you actually have live attacks, whereas this is just choosing attacks from menu. So it's kind of like if you've ever played um, Mario Superstar Saga. It's kind of a similar type of battles.
So you would say kind of a hay then, in that respect?
As far as battles go, yeah, the battles like were just like any other RPG. Like even if you played Super Mario RPG, it was the same sort of thing.
Yeah. What about if you're a fan of a good story? Yay, hay, or nay?
Definitely, if you're a fan of good story, it's it has a lot to offer because of the different time periods and the characters from each time. Like
Is it a
they're
complicated plot, or do you think players can easily grasp it?
I wouldn't say it's too complicated, although I still exactly know how it works out with getting all the endings.
Oh, that must be a behemoth of a task.
Yeah, and there's not just one villain in the game too. So
Oh, wow, that makes things much harder.
I mean, there's one main villain, but there's like a whole bunch of side villains
Hmm.
that you have to worry about.
Nice. So ultimately, you give your thumbs up to the audience to grab it if they can?
Definitely.
All right, well, I'll trust what he says because I'm not a huge fan of Final Fantasy. I tried playing the one on the GBA and I just got tired of it within minutes. But this definitely sounds like the kind of thing where, like, if I wasn't a fan of Square Enix titles, I would pick it up. So, yeah, it sounds cool enough to me. And
Yeah, and also another thing, last thing to add is that like the dialogue, if you like enter like a situation in the game, depending on which characters you have out, they'll say different things depending on their personality.
nice. So kind of like Paper Mario 2 in that respect.
Yeah, because it's like, for example, some of the two main characters that you get near the beginning, so I don't spoil it, um, is his friend Luca. She's like your typical science nerd girl that like has all these inventions, and she always talks about, oh, that's not scientific. And then there's also uh, this girl that is kind of a tomboy,
Mm-hmm.
um, but she's actually a princess. So
A tomboy princess, huh?
yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay, well, that sounds different. So, he refused to come up with a catchy catchphrase before this video, so I'll just say, he's awesome. Go check out his channel. He did some really good works on translating some of the Dante's Inferno stuff. And thank you very much for watching, and until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye. Can you at least, give the audience a happy expression, like, bye guys, see you later, something like that?
So long.
Well, that's as good as you're gonna get from him. Peace out, guys.